Well, hello there, and welcome once again to my little arty corner of the internet. Of the internet here on YouTube at any rate. I'd like to thank you all for joining me, especially to my subscribers, new and old, and I appreciate each and every one of you, as I also appreciate greatly the likes that have been given for my videos and the lovely comments that are left as well. So if you enjoy what you see, even if you only watch part of the video, could you please give a thumbs up? It really does help in YouTube getting my videos out to those who perhaps would find it interesting. And of course, I can ask you to do that if you would, by sharing it with others that you may know who may find this of interest. It's the 26th of January today. It's a Wednesday. It's another grey day. It is milder today, just. But, you know, it's winter here in the Northern Hemisphere, and in the valleys of South Wales it is distinctly winter, but all's fine and well. So, excuse me, today's fragment for the Fragments for Your Imagination Challenge 2022 is DooDah, and the one we've been given is DooDah in a circle. Now, DooDah is more usually seen as a border, which makes it quite interesting, and I'm beginning to think, what can I do with this? But I'm also beginning to understand from past experience that I may not know what to do until I put pen to paper and then things happen. So let's see what happens. I'll show you how DooDah is drawn, firstly in a border, and I've started a border here, and I've also started one that doesn't have any outside lines, because I think that could be an interesting variation on DooDah as a border. But that's for me to try to remember and you not to worry too much about. So it's a series of alternating lines. You draw the top ones, the ones that start at the top and come to the bottom, almost to the bottom, but you leave a gap, and then with the next one you start from the bottom, you leave a gap at the top. However, which way you draw them, I tend to draw mine all in the same stroke direction down. But it's about leaving those little gaps, and it ends up looking a little bit like a zip. This pattern is often seen in marquetry. I think it's marquetry, where different types of wood are used and inlaid into doors and furniture and so on to give patterns, but also in other places. It's an interesting way of breaking up that space, and it does create a sort of zigzag pattern, but without the zigzag. Yeah, I know what I'm trying to say, because zigzags we automatically think they're triangular, pointy in shape, but this one is a squarer or more rectangular version. Excuse me. So the first one today, the original fragment, is in a circular shape, and what I am going to do to help me with this is I'm just going to pop a little pencil circle in the middle, because it really will help me in sorting this out. And I've got no idea. Oh yeah, I know what I'm doing wrong. You spotted it? It's a very different skill set drawing this in this fashion. I do have to say this. It takes a lot more concentration than the more usual form, and there I will sneak one in. It ends up, this really does look like an iris of an eye without the dark spot in the middle. So different kind of pattern. Yeah, that definitely took a lot more concentration than it does in the horizontal. But then perhaps that's because I'm so used to drawing this one. This one I use quite a lot in arches and spaces that like that need filling in. Let me try this a different way, because what I'm going to do is put in perhaps a couple of construction lines. So I want the inner ones to go up to this one, the outer ones to go here and the inner ones to start from here. But what I'm going to do is what I did with this one, is I'm going to start by popping in the outermost ones, so I have an idea of, oh, I've done that wrong. I think we're going to have a very unusual variation here already. Because what I did was I completely forgot what I was doing here, and I've done the long lines right the way into the middle and the shorter lines between those two. It's a variation though, isn't it? So we'll hang on with that one. Yeah. My brain is not functioning on this one very well. Isn't that strange? The more complex ones seem easier, and the less complex ones are the ones I seem to struggle with. Okay, let's just pop the one guideline in, and let me try with a finer pen. Hopefully I've got a finer pen here. I've got no one, because that will help with the density of the lines. So from the outside in, I'm going to leave a gap, and then from the inside out, I'm going to leave a gap at the other end. Outside in, leave a gap. Inside out to the out, leave a gap. Outside to the in, leave a gap. Inside to the out, leave a gap. Outside to the in, leave a gap. Outside to the out, leave a gap. And they're beginning to get weirdly bunched up in strange directions, so this is going to prove an interesting and very challenging kind of pattern to do. I think it's having to bear in mind that having to consider that we want these lines, all of them, to radiate out or into, depending on which way we're drawing them, from a central point. And it's imagining that we're aiming these lines towards that central point there. You could either pop it in, or imagine it's there. Do it in pencil, not in pencil. Ooh, just squeeze one in there. That's the hardest part of this pattern, is getting these lines so that they don't all get scrunched up and go off in strange directions, I think. Okay, let me try this again. Because again, I'm going to pop these circles in, but that central circle in. Perhaps I'll make it that little bit wider this time. And just so I don't confuse myself, I am going to remove that central one. But I am going to pop these lines in. And what I've done here is I'm using these pencil lines as that guide for where I want these lines to go. So I'm going to use these as the guide for the lines that start from the outside and perhaps go inwards a little bit. So I've done the same thing. I've gone up to that line. So I'm going to draw a little tiny circle, or slightly tinier circle inside that one. And that's what I'm going to start with, or where these other lines are going to draw up to. Now that makes more sense to me, is that helps greatly, is having those straight lines in to help me with the way those lines need to go. But what was interesting here with this original one are these little stoppers put on the ends of the lines. So this line goes in this direction. If we imagine we draw from that line out, so we're going to pop one of those on the ends of these. And then on the other ones, it's at the end we stop with. So if you draw from this out, start on the inside and draw outwards, then we pop this on that end. So we end up with that kind of pattern. Okay. Of course, we could go full DooDah and draw a circle inside that we can then use to bounce these lines off. I say bounce because it is almost a bounce up and down. Even though I'm not doing this 100% successfully, I'm beginning to get a feel for this perhaps. So that works, and it makes more sense as to which end we put these little stoppers on. I'm using circles still, but you could put any shape you fancy. An open circle, a heart, little diamond shape, whatever seems to work. What's interesting here is I did put that central circle off centre. So let's have a go at really putting it somewhere off centre. How about somewhere like that? Challenging? Well, hell yeah. But who doesn't, well, I say who doesn't like a challenge? And I am putting these pencil construction lines in because you can see that I'm going to curve these doodahs. Oh yeah. This is going to be an interesting experiment. And I'm going to pop a circle at the end of each of these. And this time it's an open circle. And because I'm putting the open circle here, to start with, I've got a place to aim for. So let's see how that works. Perhaps if I put those little open circles in halfway between these lines, out towards the edges, right where I haven't got much space, I have put those circles right up against the edge. It helps to keep that pattern going. So that helps with the, that's giving that some volume, some dimension there, which is an interesting one. Okay, let's do one more. And I will do this off centre a bit. But instead of using a circle, I'm going to use a bit of an ovalish shape. Okay, so I'm going to put some curvy lines in, like this. And let's have a go with these. Okay, so I'm going to pop a little diamond at the end of these lines. Sometimes not a very good little diamond. And then I can draw the lines. This makes sense to me. As I was having trouble working my way through this with the early ones, my brain has finally clicked onto a method that will work for me. So I'm going to draw these lines in. And first let me pop these little diamond shapes in, so I have something to aim for. This could be done with a series of little pen dots. There we go. So different shapes will work quite nicely. In fact, that different shape gives this a complete, gives it, I say completely, it's not entirely completely, but it does give it a different feel. And I can make this feel like I've got a nice hole there, like it's a seed. So that's interesting. Okay, I don't think there's much more I can do with a circle, but let's have a look and see how it translates to other shapes. The next logical shape would be a leaf shape. Oh, there's one other circle I think I'd like to do. I'm going to start with that central point. I'm going to draw this in. But what I'm going to do, this isn't strictly DooDah, but I'm using that principle of short lines, long lines. I'm going to put the long ones in first, like so, and then just pop shorter ones in, like so, but have them coming off the same point. So I could possibly count that as a variation. Do you reckon? It's using that idea of short line, long line, or, you know, they're not really, well, they're not really, yeah, alternating lines where they stop and where they start. So different way of perhaps putting the dots in. Just came to me. It may or may not be a variant, I don't know. Okay, I'm going to pop that line in here, and I'm going to pop some dots around here, perhaps 6 of them. I'm using a thicker pen. So we've got these going to the center and stopping. Now we need the other ones, which are shorter. Of course they are in this instance. Here they'd be in a border like this, they'd be about the same length. But here they are shorter because we're not drawing them all the way out. They're all stopping on the same kind of level, or starting and stopping on the inside at the same kind of shape, same line. So we do have short and long. So that is a variation of my variation, which is fun. So yeah, it's going to work in any shape. Let me have a look at this one. So yesterday I was looking at the variations I've done already, and starting to put them into some of my favourite ones, the ones I'm likely to use, or the ones I have been using, into a dot grid notebook. A journal, I suppose you'd call it, or I like to call them a Zibladoni or commonplace book, a reference book, my own visual dictionary, and that I was finding that really quite useful in some ways for making sense or continuing to make sense of variations. Hopefully I'll find time to do that today. I'm not entirely sure I will, because I've got a number of things to do. Yeah. So with that one, I put that line in, so I'm creating that border of DooDah. I didn't really do that in a circle, so let's do that in a circular shape. We have that distinctive border in place, and let's work like this. do like to put little shapes on the ends of straight lines. Oddly, I'd never thought to do this with DooDah, so this is a new technique, a new variation that I can add to my person. Oh gosh, oh well, we'll have two of them there. That's another variation, isn't it? Let's have a look at that. Slip of the pen and off we go. Let's do them in groups. I'm going to do them in groups of 3 because I can. Again, I'm finding it a lot easier to draw the stoppers in where I want the lines to go first than I am drawing the lines in and then putting those stoppers on. Just helps in imagining, I think, for me anyway, how this is working is it's helping me to imagine where that central point would be in some ways. Okay, this is going to be scary. And 3 up here. So there's a different variation, varying instead of 1 up, 1 down, as it were. We've got 3 up, 3 down, and you could do it in a pattern of 1 and 3, or 1 and 2, and so on. So that's a different kind of way of doing it. And again, it's got a different kind of feel about it. I think that one might actually work. I'm going to just colour the middle one of these in. No, let's go and colour them all in. So I really am not sure about just that one. These are going to be fun to add metallic, you know, these circles becoming metallics and so on, I think. So that's a different way again. Does it work? I don't know. Not sure, it's just an idea. And sometimes you've got to get your ideas out. So let's do this in a different way again. We pop that shape horizontally instead of vertically. And then I'm going to use my finer pen to pop the ones in between. And I'm not going to put a topper or an end stop on that line. I'm just going to leave it like that. And the final variation, I think, for this is let's pop that echoing shape here and do these this way. I think I'd just pop that there. So another way of using that has got the feeling of being almost like a flower. So if I extend this up and draw an asymmetrical kind of these, so I've got a big bold sweeping semicircle there, smaller top. Let's pop that there, and then curving those lines just slightly And then if I use these, and curving them, to echo the ones I've put there, and then that looks a bit like a flower. And if I was to pop the stem in, there we go. So a different way of drawing a flower, perhaps. Something to think about. And you could put the stamen, you know, the circles on the ends, they look like stamen. So that's interesting. Okie dokes. Square. Alright, I am going to pop a little square in the middle. And I'm choosing where I'm going to pop the shorter ones, and I'm going to do this very symmetrically. There's that. Of course, I could pop this in pencil as a guide and draw my long ones to the corners, to the center, and then have my shorter ones starting a little bit inside that pencil square. And the other thing I just noticed, because I did a misstroke here, I actually joined this one up to the edge, is that if we pop a shape like that in this case I am putting a square in, but not technically DooDah, I suppose, because I'm not going to do any alternating lines. I'm just going to use half a DooDah. It's a do rather than a DooDah, or a dah instead of a DooDah. So if that pencil, if I erase that pencil line out, then these will create the shape of a square there. Here, if I put a circular shape in, I think I'm going to pop the corner ones in first, because that helps me space these out and get the angles correct. In my mind anyway. So there we've got a hole in the middle without actually having a hole. Is this like pepper? That's the Zentangle pattern where you have some kind of hole and shapes like this coming off. So I suppose it's a kind of variation of that in a way as well. So I've changed from one pattern to another. So it's almost like you're hooking these lines over the edge of that circle, and a thicker version at the end where they attach to that outside square. So it's a bit like that, but I can DooDah it, I think, but I'm going to take these lines back from that pencil line like that, or like this. I'm only going to do parts of the square. So you can fit those ones in and make them not go out to the edge. It's almost like adding a sparkle around the edge, or a bit of highlight around the edge. Another way of adding shadow, I suppose, to the inner bits, to give it that feeling of everything pulling inwards. Let me just complete this. And I think you'll see what I'm trying to talk about, perhaps. There's a greater density of line closer to the middle, so it looks like it's flowing inwards. If I do another variation here, again, I am going to pop, let's put a wobbly one in, because, well, why not? So I'll take my thicker lines almost up to that inner line, I think, to that pencil line. And then for this one, I'll draw these other lines coming from the pencil line. That's not as neat and tidy, and I completely forgot what I was going to do, which was pop that shape in there. I'm going to draw these in, but I'm going to leave some space for finer lines in between. Don't always remember to do that. And instead of having these shorter lines beginning here and stopping out there, let's have them stopping, going from the outside edge and stopping short of the pencil line. And then I could add some more of these finer lines, shorter versions of, in the gaps between. Not doing a very good job of it. This is what sketchbooks are for. They're for getting ideas down. But that increases the density of line to the outside edge. And if I wanted to really enhance that, then I can make the lines as they join that outside edge that much thicker. And again, I say again a lot. I'm going to have to stop myself and become aware of this, I think. Could go back and do that with, say, these, where I have oops, not that one perhaps, but that one. They do widen out at the end. Part of me wants to go, I wonder what happens if. Let's broaden the ends of these ones just a bit. Even though they don't reach the outside edge, just going to broaden it that little bit and see. So that adds extra weight and that more graphic feeling. I think that these ones could be useful. I'm not quite sure how well they work and whether they're really doodads. I think they're doodads rather than doodahs. So with that one, I've put those lines in, but I've tried to make them in most cases so they don't touch the outside line and they don't touch that inner pencil line, so they're distinctly shorter. So it's a different kind of doodah, I suppose. If I was going to draw it, it would be like this. This reminds me of something in science. Something to do with waves, possibly. I don't know. It's been so long since I've taught science, or my mind just doesn't go there too easily. Although some things it goes there very easily with, but... Oh no, I know, batteries. It's the symbol for batteries. The positive and negative ends. So the long line's the positive end of a battery, and the short end's the negative. Dear goodness. Oh, is that right? I think so. I could be wrong. It's been a long time. But yeah, so what's that? Waves. Because you can... Yeah, just straight line variations in size and shape. Or size. Yeah, patterns. Okay, squares. Triangles. I paused then because my brain was thinking, well, what about doing these outside? As in this kind of thing. And I don't see any reason why not with a square. I may have a look at these in a moment. Going to pop these here, one there, one there, one there, and then in between it's going to be the I do like the alternating open circles and closed circles. There's that. I think I do much prefer it if I pop that. In as the traditional kind of DooDah. But anything I do with a square I can do in a triangle. Okay, any other shapes I want to look at? Let's have a look at a wibbly wobbly one. Because I think that's one of the wibbly wobbly ones we can have a lot of fun with, to be honest. They do tend to be quite fun-like. So we've got those, and we'll just pop the ones in between. I find it so much easier to do these different kinds of shapes that way, is putting the set of one in and then filling the other ones in between, as it were. So that would work, and any variation you can do there, you can do with that. So essentially, apart from my strange ones and these repetitions here, I don't think I can come up with any more. I did say I was going to have a go at let's have a look at this. Okay. Pop these that way. There, 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 there. And then pop the ones in between, almost going out to the edge. And then I want to do, I need to draw shape in here. My issue is, how am I going to do this? But because I don't want these lines to join, so I think it's going to be a case of, let me go around and pop these ones in before I do any other. These are the ones that weren't going to go out to that pencil line, but they have done. And then draw the other ones in Don't know if this will work actually. Strange, but it kind of works in a weird way. It's almost like being able to nest them. So if I pop this, another one. I've drawn this completely wrong because I wanted a, yeah, second one here. Perhaps I can do it with a fine pen. So nesting doodahs. I don't know if this will work actually. I did say I wasn't sure what I could do with this one and whether it would vex me, and it's another one that's vexed me, I think. On the balance of it all, I think I like the ones that have the outside border in, and I'm particularly fond, I think, of the ones that have those a different shape in the centre, like in these squares here. Try that with a triangle. Perhaps just put a weird shape in and let's see how that works. Same kind of thing, except I've got lines all over the place. I think with these, like with the others, rather than trying to do the doodah that goes to this imaginary shape, is just actually to make all the lines just meet that shape. So you're going to get that illusion that there is a shape in there, but there isn't really, because it's just your eye, your mind mentally joining up the dots, you know, the ends of those lines. So that would work quite nicely. It's not quite doodah, but I think that may be the way that it works. What? Of course, it'll work in any kind of shape. So if I pop a heart within a heart, it's going to be easy enough to pop lines in this way. And perhaps use that finer pen to pop lines in between. Like that, but a lot neater than I've just done it. Possibly. Let me try this one just one last time. Let's pop that shape in the middle. And pop these in between, but join them to the outside edge. And make them shorter than the other one. So that would kind of work as well. Those curves really give volume. So I think I'm done with this one. I really am. It's a DooDah itself is a lovely pattern. It's one that I use an awful lot. I'm not entirely sure I would use many of these variations. I quite like this one, and I didn't do a corresponding one for the circle, but it would be something like this but with a full circle. Those could be useful. I quite like this kind that is sort of like a pepper one. That could be useful, could be interesting in a grid pattern to have these random shapes but with these lines going in. The hearts are interesting. This one is just DooDah going around in a square. The borders there. So yeah, so it's a funny old pattern. I mean, the leaf-shaped ones are the ones I think I like the most here. This was interesting. I prefer that one to this one though. Swooped those sides up a bit too much for me. I prefer that shape. But yeah, so that could be an interesting pattern. In fact, I'm going to have a go at that with I'm going to go back to doing DooDah in a border for a moment just to see how something like that would work. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It looks like a circuit board, part of a circuit board in electronics. Don't get the same visual effect really as you do for the original DooDah, but it's an interesting kind of pattern. I think it's one I'd use. I could be wrong, mind you. One that I possibly would use would be where instead of going zip-like, I'm just alternating these here. So that would be a border I would use, and that could be something that would actually work in these shapes to some degree. A funny pattern. I've come up with a page of variations mostly, but look at this. I suppose if I'm pushing it, it is a variation of DooDah, just where you've got these ones. Yeah, it's kind of is. I wonder how it would work. As I said about sort of perhaps doing one and then 2 of the others. So if I put that one there, perhaps 2 here, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. There is a rhythm in that, and I think with this one what helps, I think, is that the top, well, the single stalks have got that bold black on them, and the bottom ones have got the open ones, so it's sort of, they sort of balance each other out, but it doesn't give me the same sort of like pleasure, I suppose, as the straight line DooDah. But you've got to try these things out to see what happens. Very quickly, very quickly, let's have a look at what some shadow will do. The shadow may actually be the making of some of these variations. I'm just going to pop some shadow along one side of this one. And then both sides of this one, perhaps. Trying to keep it away from the circles, though. You can always go back and add highlights in there. This one, the heart shape, I think this one would definitely benefit from shadow around the outside. Just teasing it up that little bit. And compare it with adding shadow on the inside. See if you've got a smaller tortillon than I have. At the moment, it's just whatever's lurking close to these I'm making use of. And that way I should have the highlights around the middle. That may need a bit of help to bring it out. It does there, so that'll work. And I'll just work on that one, and just bring those highlights out. Okay. Other ones, I think I'm going to pop highlight on one side there and then there. So the bottom and the top. Opposite sides on this one, so that side of that inner shape and this side here. This one, definitely at the bottom, I think. That looks quite nice. These ones are quite interesting, I think. Is that popping a shadow but leaving some white space close to that central bit makes it feel like there's a lip around it almost. Perhaps. This one is interesting because I'm going to add some shadow in the middle there, so we've got like that there, but let's add some right round the outside, working it from that outer edge inwards. So we're creating an edge with the shadow. I'm going over the that highlight in the middle gives it that kind of donutty shape, and that would work for others as well. So yeah, I definitely think the shadowing is the making of these variations, to be honest with you. I can see Now I'm adding some shadow to them, how interesting they could be. This one I'm going to add shadow right the way around the outside edge, and it helps to disguise the messiness of my lines as well, just a bit. Start to make the shadow follow that hole in the middle as well. This one, I think I'd want some shadow in here, but also round the outside edges, and this is where very light touch, a sharper pencil would help. You get the idea, so that's fun. So yeah, I think so. Okay, let's have a go with these and see how shadow on the outside and shadow on the inside works with the triangles. And I'm using chalk pastels here. You could use graphite, you could use colour to bring out the shapes as well. This one's fun because it actually looks like it's bending and folding, which I hadn't actually noticed until now, which is interesting. I often say this, when you work too closely to a piece of work, sometimes you need that time and distance away from it to be able to see what the illusion is that you've created. That's actually quite a fun one. So that is one I could use quite happily, perhaps not with such thick lines inside. I think I'd prefer the finer lines. Yeah, and the squares. Okay, this one I'm going to put shadow on that side and shadow this side. So the outside square, I've added the shadow to the left and the bottom, and this one to the top and the right. So we have that going on, which is actually quite fun. And this one, let's add shadow on the inside of that. Let's go to town with shadow all the way around. I've just realised what I haven't done with the variation. And I'll do it on a border because I've run out of space for any others really. Is if in a border, decide to make one set of lines thick and bold, and then do the other ones thin. So that's a variation, as is doing different shapes. We could use triangles instead of oblongs. And we could make them, that looks like piano keys almost, not quite, but also it's quite thick, top and bottom as well. Depends how graphic you want to get. Those shapes are interesting. I'm talking of interesting shapes. I know DooDah is in a fragment. We're supposed to be doing fragments. Borders are kind of fragments, aren't they? Kind of that kind of shape. They overlap, so that's possible as well. Even to the point of, oh look, creating tall, skinny, rounded arches. And I'll just colour a couple in. This. And another variation. Where have I got space here? That's just come to me is to do T shapes, I suppose. They're like letter T's or little hammers. So it's a variation of the circle, but it's keeping that very interesting kind of, I say interesting kind of, but the very geometric kind of shape to them. So variations that you could do. And with these, you could add patterns within them. Where's the other one? I did that one. I was thinking you could put, you know, like almost like crescent moons. Looking for space. Right, okay, here we go. Up the side. So somebody's going to tell me this is like a Tangle pattern that's in existence already. It feels familiar, or perhaps I've just done it this way myself, because I do tend to play with things anyway. So there we are. Oh, it looks like a tree trunk, like silver birch. So there we are. A whole host of variations and a pile of different ones that came up at last knockings, as we could say, the very last bit. How many times has that happened where I've gone, I haven't got any more? And I start adding shadow and I see things, my mind clicks and connects to things, and up it all comes. Varying these shapes here like this, and you know, another shape that would be interesting with that, looking for some space here, there's a bit here, would be to use little triangles. And this is a pattern that I have seen in other places. Not Zentangle. I'm trying to think what period of art I'll have seen this in. But it's a nice variation of DooDah, where you have triangles on the ends, variation of circles, these, you know, so on. So interesting. I'm saying interesting because it is interesting to me now. It took a while, didn't it? It took a long while for me to get there, but I got there. So another long video, but I hope you enjoy it. I hope it gives you plenty of ideas. I think the biggest thing about this one today is that shadow, adding shadow, is what has brought a lot of these to life and has made sense of them. When they're just drawings, plain drawings, you know, the difference that shadow has made to this compared to this one, or this compared to this, how this has got that outer boundary with shadow rather than a pen line, you know, from this to say this. It brings them to life, it gives them shape and form, and things start to come together. And how much you think you finished, but I went on to add shadow. I wasn't going to do that, but I thought I will do, and suddenly other ideas came to me as I was doing that. So, and each one leads to another one. So from being a bit despondent that I couldn't get a lot out of this one, it's led to other variations, perhaps not necessarily of fragments, though, you know, all of these patterns I've done, these borders can be wrapped into a fragment, can be added to a fragment. In fact, they could be fragments on their own. You know, we've done fragments like this and this, but there's nothing to stop us doing fragments that are like, oh gosh, I'm going to, right, looking for a space. A fragment that is like this. And then that is repeated in a grid, and you rotate it you know, up and down, left to right, up and down, left to right, and so on, because that could be interesting. And it would work in other shapes as well. With this one, I think I'd go like this. In fact, I think I quite like that kind of thing very much, to be honest. And of course it would work in a triangle, and there's so many different ways, I'm sure, of putting it into other shapes. You know, circles, it would work anything, you know, even in a wibbly wobbly shape. In fact, a wibbly wobbly shape could be quite an interesting one to do. So let's fit a wibbly wobbly one in here. To keep track on how you do things, but it fits in, so it will fill it in. You just adjust where the lines go. So doing it that way would create a fragment, and putting an edge around it does as well. Just helps with that, an edge, a border. So lots of things that could be done, lots and lots of them. See what I mean? There's no hope for me. So there's another fragment, the DooDah in. Lots of ways of using DooDah. Who'd have thought it, eh? But we got there. I got there. I did. I've got there. Got there at the end. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I've said this before. I am going to finish now. It's an hour and 5 minutes. And I'll say thank you for joining me, especially if you've stuck right through to the bitter end here. And I hope I'll see you back again. Look after yourselves, take care, and find time to be creative. Bye-bye for now. Bye.